Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 14, Episode 64. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here in this Monday Steelers Nation later podcast today because of the Mike Tomlin press conference held on Monday ahead of Saturday's game against the Bengals, and then the Damontae Kazee news we'll talk about. Dave, since we last spoke, we have a third straight loss, a second or so quarterback change, a star safety hurt, another one ejected and then suspended, and a partridge in a pear tree. So that's how today is going. So I don't know where to start, Dave. How you doing?
Yeah, there's no time for that. There's no time for me to try to be funny or no lollygagging here at the start. So point us in a direction. Let's roll with this baby.
All right. Headlines of where we sit here today, Monday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Pittsburgh losing to the Colts 30-13 on Saturday. Pittsburgh 7-7 on the season. Now the 10th seed in the AFC. Quarterback change happening in Pittsburgh. Mason Rudolph expected to start. Mike Tomlin not ruling out a chance that Kenny Pickett could play in this game against the Bengals on Saturday. Sounds like he will practice in some capacity, but Rudolph right now the expected starter. Minka Fitzpatrick out with a knee injury suffered in the Colts game. He will not play against the Bengals. Damontae Kazee ejected in the first half of the Colts game, now suspended for the rest of the season, including any postseason games. Insert your own Steelers joke here about that. He will appeal that, and so we'll see where things go from there. So those are the headlines. Where to start, I don't really know. Let's just start with the news that came in most recently of Damontae Kazee being suspended by the NFL for the rest of the season, the remaining 3 regular season games Pittsburgh has, and any potential playoff games. Your reaction to that news?
Yeah, let's go back to initially the hit during the game. Obviously, an unfortunate kind of bang play. Thoughts and prayers to Michael Pittman. You hate to see any player, anybody laid out like that. The flag was not really overly surprising overall. I think it did catch me on surprise that they eject. I mean, real quick, the decision seemed to be made to eject him from the game. I usually thought that kind of stuff and Mike Tomlin, I guess, thinks New York made the decision and made it quick. I found that a bit surprising. Obviously, as the replays of that started to roll through, and you get the reverse angle of it and slow down, and obviously players don't play in slow-mo time. The way he went low and lowered his shoulder, the way the player was coming down. I understand. Look, anytime you got the head and neck involved, you're obviously going to have the heightened awareness and all like that. So I can understand the flag being thrown, but after getting all the info to roll in over the next what was it 5-minute span of time there, I don't know what you want him to do other than let him let Pittman catch that. It's unfortunate. Yes, Kazee has a history of 5 previous unnecessary roughness fines, but they're not pulling that sheet out right there in that moment.
Sure.
It's a nameless gray face right there as far as they're concerned. So I thought it was a bit over the top just in the quick ejection process of throwing them out of the game. Now, obviously, you're not going to undo any of that. And then, Mike Tomlin was asked today. Nothing's going to surprise him when it comes to a decision on losing Kazee further. And the league quickly after that announced that he's going to be suspended the rest of the season. And then who was the other defensive back for Denver that's gone?
Kareem Jackson.
Yeah, Kareem Jackson, and to see how his process has went this offseason. I think Kazee's got a good chance of getting this rolled back to some degree. I think they'll probably, my guess is that he will remain suspended for this game coming up. But I wouldn't be surprised if it ends at that, to be quite honest with you. Now, Kazee's brother has come out and contacted me on Twitter there, replying to the post that I did on the number of times he's been fined this season. And it sounds like all but one of them already have been appealed off. So if indeed that's the case, long story short, I won't be surprised if this gets rolled back to just the one game.
And Kazee is appealing the suspension according to his agent, which is no surprise. I'm not surprised.
They probably all appeal everything now. JJ Watt came out the other day on Twitter. I guess it's been a little over a week or so ago, and says, players, all of you should appeal everything. So that's probably just standard process now.
Sure. But just to make a note of that there's going to be a decision coming from the league, I assume in quick order, because, I mean, to get in the weeds just briefly, he can't even be around the facility once suspended, correct? That's an in-season suspension. You can't practice. You can't be in the building. Am I wrong on the?
I think so, because it's without pay. I think I think you've got to be placed on a reserve suspended list, and you can't be around.
Right. And they practice tomorrow because of the Saturday game. So a decision has to be made in short order. Now, I'm not surprised by the flag, by the ejection. I assume there was going to be a big fine coming if he were to avoid a suspension, coming into this week. I am surprised, though, that it was for the entire season. And then not only just that, but also any postseason play, too. It basically an indefinite suspension, or I guess maybe not indefinite, but the rest of the season without a firm number of games on it, where theoretically if Pittsburgh were to go to the Super Bowl, that's a 7-game suspension for Damontae Kazee. To me, that seemed surprising to see that. I'm with you, Dave. I expect him to win the appeal in the sense of getting it reduced. Will he get it overturned? I doubt it. I don't think the appeals officer is going to do that, whether it's Derek Brooks or James Thrash. But we did see them reduce Kareem Jackson's first suspension from 4 games to 2. Now Brooks upheld the second 4-game suspension the NFL levied, which really was not a surprise to me. But I had a tweet earlier today, 4 factors of why I think Kazee will get this appeal reduced to some capacity. It was a low play. Pittman-Dova wasn't in the air, something like that you've seen before. Kyle Hamilton earlier this year, for example. Kazee did not actually launch himself. He never left his feet to make that play. He turned his helmet, led it with his shoulder instead. And as you mentioned, seems like 80% of his fines have been rescinded. So the NFL is basically saying, we're suspending you because you are a repeat offender of hits to the head. And Kazee's retort to that, his camp's retort to that will be, well, these have almost all been overturned on appeal. So you don't have the history you claim that I do. And so my guess, and it's just a guess, I think he will finish with a 2-game suspension and be able to return for Week 18 against Baltimore.
All right, and he obviously had that ejected back in 2018 for a hit on Cam Newton to helmet to helmet and all like that. So I imagine history gets factored into that. But and then right before we came on, we came across what Lord Brady has chimed in on this, has he not?
Yeah, Tom Brady taking to Instagram, and let me find the exact comment defending Damontae Kazee, the quarterback defending the safety here. I'll just kind of read some of the things that Brady has to say. I have a post of it up on the site right now. It says, quote, hard hits happen. Quarterbacks should not be throwing the ball in areas where they are exposing their own teammates to these types of hits. Coaches need to coach better. Quarterbacks need to read coverages and throw the ball to the right places, and defenders should aim for the right hitting areas. To put the blame on the defensive player all the time is just flat out wrong. And he goes on to just kind of say the quarterbacks need to be better overall. I'm not going to defend the hit necessarily. I'm not even sure, though, what leads to an ejection. I'm not even sure what the ruling is, if there's actual written language, but my assumption is anytime there's a hit to the head where a player gets seriously hurt and it just looks and sounds as bad as it did, and it was a vicious, you just kind of recoiled watching that one. That's where you get to the kind of suspension type of level. I don't know if I really agree I mean, maybe Brady has an overall point about quarterbacks have to be better, but that's not my takeaway here about Kazee. It was a vicious hit. There's no question about that, and an illegal hit. Regardless of whether it should be or shouldn't be, and what the defender's supposed to do, it was an illegal hit. But again, I think the mitigating factors will play in Kazee's favor on appeal.
But they talk about Tom Brady behind his back at the next quarterback fraternity meeting. That was a bit of a shock. But look, I mean, it was, you hate to use the word hospital ball, but we use it almost weekly on the Twitter machine, right? And he did lay him out to have to do that. And look, if Kazee would have had another step or two, it could be probably called in. And my history with reviewing these things on the site and having to write about them and all like that, fans obviously want you to side with the team automatically. And over the years, I've become what I feel is really objective on this kind of stuff. And some things I think, have deservedly been fined and all like that. And I've obviously caught ire from listeners and readers and fans. I do think Kazee got the short end of the stick, so to speak, here. And I was a bit surprised that how quickly they did decide to eject him from the game. And then once again, as the video replays came through and all like that, I don't know what else. I mean, even that picture that they used that Tom Brady responded to, you could clearly see that he's turned and he's leading with his shoulder and all that.
It is still illegal, an illegal hit.
Sure. I once again, I was not surprised to see the flag. I could be talked into the immediate ejection, but past that, it feels like the off the cuff thing is to not even look at it, just throw out the rest of the season suspension and then work backwards from there.
Well, I don't know how quickly New York got to see that. I imagine they probably, because it wasn't immediate, it was probably a minute, 2 minutes after the actual hit, because Pittman was attended to, and then the refs are talking to the coaches and speaking with Tomlin. And so New York can probably pull that stuff up pretty quickly and make a decision.
Okay. Well, I think a minute's pretty quick, but all right.
I mean, I just don't think to me, it was pretty clear. I mean, it was a legal hit to the head there. And again, I don't even know what the actual escalation has to be to go from just a penalty to ejection, but
How much different was that from the Landon Roberts hit a couple of weeks ago?
Well, again, what I was getting to, again, right or wrong, is anytime a player gets severely hurt, that's influencing the decision to eject, I'm pretty sure. Anytime a player is laying motionless on the ground, visually, that's going to have an impact on whether or not a player gets suspended. That may be, you may say that's wrong, and that's probably a fair point. The outcome of the player getting hurt or not, it should be defined by the action of the player that made the hit. But anytime a player is laying motionless, the way Pittman did for several moments, that has an emotional impact on ejection.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see how this turns out. Probably, as you stated, I mean, there's no sense for us to spend another 30 minutes on this. I do think he should have got flagged. I was a bit surprised how quick the ejection came. And then I was even more surprised that we're suspended the rest of the season and the playoffs on top of it there. So, and I'm not surprised he's appealing it, and we'll see what they decide. But I will not be shocked if this gets rolled back to just this Saturday. I think he's going to miss this Saturday's game. Yeah. I don't think there's any way around that because of the previous times he was fined this year. But and you seem to think that he'll get maybe 2 games out of this. So we'll know pretty quick, I think.
That's my guess. How many times was he flagged? Because he's been fined, but that's been on a couple hits because the NFL's cracked down on those lowering of the helmet plays that look so innocuous. You would miss it if you didn't even look at the play in that kind of light. How many times has he actually been flagged by the NFL this year for an illegal hit?
All right, I can pull that up for you right
Just be curious on
now. Kazee, where's Kazee at?
And I know some people will push back on my commentary about I think the ejection was just, and I don't disagree with that. But again, I do think Kazee has great grounds to have this appeal reduced in some meaningful capacity.
As far as flags go this year, penalties, he has 1 defensive pass interference and 1 disqualification, which was
so that flag. That ejection was the first time he was flagged for an illegal hit this year.
Right. The previous fines have come on non-flagged instances.
Okay, I figured. And 80% of those apparently were rescinded on appeal. So that also, I think, will work in Casey's favor.
Okay.
All right, moving on from that, we'll let you know, maybe have some more finality on the outcome later this week. I imagine that appeal will get heard in relatively short order with the game coming up on Saturday. Again, will be heard either by Derek Brooks or James Thrash. They are appointed jointly by the NFL and the NFLPA. Let's talk quarterbacks, Dave. Mason Rudolph expected to start. Kenny Pickett, outside chance to play. Will practice in some capacity. Point is, though, Mitch Trubisky starting days in Pittsburgh are over. And what is your take on Mike Tomlin's announcement of that decision and plan today?
I'm not going to lie. Yesterday, I was starting to get a sinking feeling in my stomach that Mike Tomlin was going to come out today and say, you know what, we looked at the tape and we're gonna roll with Trubisky one more start here. I started to get that feeling in the pit of my stomach, and mainly because he just, and I understand that quick after the game, probably not going to be all off the cuff and make a decision right then. But I really started to get a sinking feeling in my stomach Sunday afternoon that Mike Tomlin was going to come out and say roll with Mitch Trubisky as a starter against the Bengals. So I'm glad to be wrong there. Now look, this thing could look just as ugly on Saturday with Mason Rudolph at quarterback against the Bengals. I can envision things now. Yeah, you guys thought Mason Rudolph should start. Look what that got you. My take on this is, what really do you have to lose at this point? Mitch has had ample opportunity since he's been in Pittsburgh to show that he can be the guy off the bench. I wrote a couple of weeks ago that these upcoming games with Mitch Trubisky might just decide his future past the 2023 season. Boy, did that make up for that? That's my mulligan.
That aged well, as the kids say, but in a positive way.
Yeah. Now, obviously not. You don't root for that.
Sure.
But and we also talked that there should be no politics in all this, and nothing to worry about. If you make the decision to pull the plug, you pull the plug on it and don't look back. More than anything, right now, I think we got our answer about Mitch Trubisky in 2024. At least I hope we've got our answer on that right now. You signed this guy and then extended him this offseason, talked about how good a guy he is, great guy for the locker room, and he probably is that, probably everything and more, good guy in the quarterback room. But if you're going to be that guy and pay him even the kind of money that you're giving him and giving him the backup designation, your expectation is for him to come in and at least give you some positive, for the most part, maybe pull out a game or two on the bench, or at least not be something that you can point to really specifically to lose games. He has turned the football over too many times in an offense. And look, it's not just him. I'm not pointing the finger all at Mitch Trubisky here, but we have seen and talked about how this offense, in the way, shape, or form that it's in right now, cannot afford to turn the football over in any capacity. And he has done that too many times now. And the sailed throw to Pickens, the second one in that game, the second interception, had to be the straw that broke the camel's back, because that's a wraparound. They ran that play earlier in the game and he hit Pickens on it. They changed the formation up, had him open again. Just step up and drill that damn ball to him in that situation there. But instead, he sailed it. He admits he sailed it. Turnover again, and that ultimately got him benched, and now that has ultimately lost him the start against Cincinnati. We'll see how the whole Rudolph thing plays out, but Rudolph deserves a chance now to at least go out there and show what he can do. If it's a train wreck, it's a train wreck.
To me, this was a no-brainer decision for Mike Tomlin to make this change, to go to Rudolph, and it, to me, was his only move to make. You can't be a head coach that on Saturday says we can't do the same things over and over again, and we got to clean things up, and we got to expect changes to happen, is what Tomlin said, and then to stick with Mitch Trubisky, a guy that's playing a very active role in why you've lost the last two games. Again, as you said, not the only reason why, far from it, but playing an active role in this team, their 3-game losing skid. And the role of a veteran backup quarterback is to do what Trubisky was supposed to do. Come in late in the season, win you 1 or 2 games, keep your season alive and going until the starter gets healthy again. And Trubisky's done the opposite of that, again, contributing to this team collapsing and now out of the playoff picture and very dim playoff hopes right now. So, yeah, is Rudolph going to be the savior? No. Is he going to be the long-term starter? No, of course not. But he takes care of the football. He's more structured in your offense. He runs it better overall, and ball security is paramount. Trubisky's always been, I remember that reader a couple episodes ago said, don't call it aggression, call it recklessness. And you see that with Trubisky's mechanics are a mess. No, the line was a mess in this game too, and they did him no favors. I want to be clear with that. But Trubisky, just terrible with his accuracy, decision making, awareness, and you had to make a change.
I agree. And, I think another thing that hurt Trubisky, and Mike Tomlin talked to this, is another portion of talking about what things Tomlin said that we're going to get into. Obviously, turning down the decision to kick that long field goal later in the third quarter. Mike Tomlin, after the game, talked about didn't want to put the defense back out there in that situation with them leaking and having the lost players that they had at that point, 2 safeties down. The linebacker position already running on empty as it was. And then he specifically pointed to today that the play before that, they basically was looking to take a deep shot down the left-hand side. That was taken away and not there. Trubisky threw it anyway. Not only did he throw it, he did throw it anywhere where even a 10-foot tall George Pickens could catch that. And Mike Tomlin pointed to that. Their hope was that he would have taken the check down over to the left side to Jaylen Warren, who, by the way, probably could have ran quite a bit of ways with that one. So you had that decision. Obviously, a missed communication, whatever on I think it was a third down in the middle of the field to Pat Freiermuth. You could probably blame both on that, and miscommunication, but that, and then you couple those things along with that bad interception, the second one that he sailed over George Pickens' head, and then you compile all that with the previous interceptions that he's thrown this season, bad decisions. That's what got him sat down.
And 13 points against the 29th ranked, scoring defense the Colts were entering that game. So just can't produce. Tomlin also citing just inability to score points as one reason for this change as well. Yeah, I just pulled up that third down play, and he's got Warren open on the check down. He's got Freiermuth maybe open underneath. Connor Hayward, I believe, open right side underneath. The Colts are playing, loose zone defense, playing the sticks essentially on third and forever. I mean, you had any other option, but even attempting to throw it to Pickens, let alone a ball that ends up in the 5th row, you have to wonder what the thought process is there.
YOLO ball.
Yeah, and it got Trubisky burned. So the change is the right one to make there. Rudolph, we'll see. We'll see. The most Mason Rudolph thing ever would be that Kenny Pickett starts his game. He gets healthy and pushes and gets cleared last second, and Rudolph is back to the backup. So no guarantee of that. Rudolph has been down this road before and kind of been, he's like Charlie Brown kicking the football. Might get that one pulled away, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. We'll say at worst, Mason Rudolph's going to be the backup. That's for sure.
Yeah, I do think push comes to shove, Rudolph will ultimately start this game, but there is still a chance. Tomlin kept that door ajar for Kenny Pickett. Pickett's going to practice apparently limited capacity, I think on Wednesday, Tomlin said. So again, I don't think it's going to be enough time and enough reps for him to go, but just want to make note of that.
All right,
where to here, Dave? Let's go from an injury standpoint. Tomlin speaking during his Monday presser. Minkah Fitzpatrick already ruled out for the Bengals game due to a knee injury suffered in the first half of the Colts game. Not a good sign to be ruled out on a Monday early in the week there. Tomlin did not make any comment about beyond this week for the Seahawks game week 17, the Ravens game week 18, but not a great sign there for Minkah. Obviously, Kazee, we can assume, will not play in this game. Trenton Thompson dealing with a stinger. He finished out the Colts game, but he's not 100%. So safety depth, is gone at this point. Cam Hayward's in concussion protocol. Keanu Neal's not going to be back this week, by the way, with the rib injury. He will remain on IR, and then Pickett questionable, and we'll try to practice in some capacity this week. So the defense that was already battered, already dealing with injuries, dealing with a whole host more.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And, talk about Elijah Riley. We'll see. But even so, how are you going to bring him? He might, I would suppose it will get the word anytime now that his window's opened up, right? Or
for who are you talking about, Riley?
Elijah Riley. Didn't he mention Elijah Riley?
Yeah, is that was he on IR?
Yeah.
Okay, am I missing something? I'm trying to get my bearings on his status right now. He mentioned Neal.
I thought for sure he mentioned Elijah Riley, didn't he?
Okay, no, you're right. He did, yeah. November 20th. Yeah. So that's a good point there. For some reason I was thinking practice squad with Elijah Riley, but you're right. So we'll see if that window would open. If it would open, then you imagine Tuesday will be the day that it opens.
All right. So even if you get that announcement and he resumes practicing, how much can he be expected to do much on defense?
Yeah, I don't know. He can't play in special teams, and that's going to be one element because as you lose starters, you kind of get thin on special teams as well. But Tomlin also mentioning Eric Rowe as an option. He's a guy that's got NFL experience and was on the practice squad. I think actually came in whenever Riley got put on IR. So it sounds like Rowe's going to be up this week regardless. Right, and with him having the most practice time as of late, probably has more chance to see in the field on defense than Riley does. Riley can certainly come back right away and help you on special teams if he's up. Right. So your options right now: Minka's out, Kazee will assume is out. We'll assume Thompson plays. You have Miles Killebrew. You have Eric Rowe.
Patrick Peterson can play some center field if you need him to.
Yeah, he played a ton of safety in that game. So those are, and then Riley potentially as well. So those are your. That's going to be your group of safeties in this game. And then maybe, Darius Rush in sub package. Not that he's a safety, he's a corner, but he's kind of played some safety earlier this season.
Yeah, not great, Bob. And you set yourself up for a lot of more miscommunication in there if you got all those. But there might not be any way around it, right? You're probably going to have to piecemeal this thing together and have a lot of different bodies rotating in and out.
Yeah, I don't think you can ask any of these one guys to go out there and play 70 snaps. That's probably not good for them, not good for the team overall. And you get to face a Bengals offense that's still, scoring, putting up points. And we'll see if Jamar Chase plays. Maybe the best thing for Pittsburgh right now is for Jamar Chase to miss a game.
Would you play a lot of cover 3 in this? Just try to keep a lid on it?
Well, Mike Tomlin said they got to make it simpler, but I've been saying that for a month. I don't know how much more simple things can get. I mean, we're talking paint by numbers at this point. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of spot drop zone, simple stuff. I mean, that's going to be my expectation for this game.
I mean, you almost got to get away from so much man now, especially against this group of wide receivers. Try to play some zone, try to get after the quarterback, and it'd be nice is to have a lead too. That's legal as far as last I saw here, because I was thinking about this the other night. Sometimes your best defense can be a good offense. And remember the days of the Steelers offense putting up some points and Dick LeBeau just turning them guys loose. It had to run. I don't want to get too far deep into breaking down what happened against the Colts just yet, though. But imagine having a pretty good lead on those guys in the second half of that game, and turning TJ Watt loose a little bit and having more opportunities, but instead to take the turntables, as the kid liked to say, and they got where they were just running the ball at will. And Minshew said, "Hey, I got the lead. Just get rid of the football. Don't hold on to it." A good offense can certainly help out your defense, especially when it comes to the scoreboard. Hey, we got some breaking news here from the presser today. Mike Tomlin pointed some fingers at the offense today.
That's legal. I didn't know that was legal. I thought that was outlawed by the NFL. Yeah, and finally, and rightfully so, because Pittsburgh had a lead in this one. I mean, they were up 13-0. It wasn't a fluid way to do it, and it wasn't a good offense that really accomplished that, but it was a block punt that played a big role. But 13-0, that is now going to be the tied for the second largest blown lead in a loss in the Mike Tomlin tenure. Only the Chargers back in 2018, when they were up 16, Pittsburgh was larger than that. So Pittsburgh had a lead, and they folded like a house of cards in this one, Dave.
Not gonna lie, I thought they had them. There was a lot of I thoughts in this game from me, and those thoughts ended up being right. They blocked that punt, and obviously had missed that first extra point. But I'm thinking, man, 13-0. All right, maybe they can get out ahead of this one. And it all went south. And as Mike Tomlin pointed to, it didn't help. It's not the lone reason why you lost the game, but having the attrition that you had at safety and all like that, and what was close to, I guess, back-to-back plays there, and your defense just really just folding at that point. Your offense couldn't do anything moving forward at that point. I mean, they quickly chewed into it and beyond. And all right, what else do we have from Tomlin before we get more into breaking down that atrocity of a game?
Yeah, I mean, that's the bulk of it. Talking about the switch and the opportunity for Rudolph, but we covered that ground pretty good. Other than that, I mean,
this is it. This has got to be it for Mitch, right? I mean, after the season comes and goes, and especially with him having a roster bonus next year, I believe that's in March, didn't I? Right, that was in March there. You got to pull the plug on that, don't you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I had said a couple weeks ago before Trubisky, got the nod right after Pickett got hurt that I thought Trubisky would be back. You just paid him the money, and for Pittsburgh to pull that plug would be immediate. But I think I had the caveat, unless things looked really bad, and things have looked really bad now, it's hard to justify that. Clearly, there's a loss of trust, and he does not fit well with how Pittsburgh's offense and team wins in terms of taking care of the football and just making the easy play and all that kind of stuff. So that'd be my expectation. But then the question becomes, okay, who's your backup quarterbacks next year? Do you bring Rudolph back? Do you go sign another veteran type guy? It's an open question from there.
Well, I think Rudolph, assuming he starts, has now got a one game audition to see if he can come back at a minimum salary, either number 2 or number 3. Period.
Sure, that's a fair assessment.
Yeah, but I think we have our answer on Mitch.
Yeah, I mean, this team's going to have to make some big changes in the offseason, and that's probably going to be one of them.
All right.
That's probably it from Tomlin. If anything we missed, we'll get back into it for the Wednesday show. All right,
get the Tariq Carpenter news out of the way here real quick.
Oh, yeah, I should mention that as well. Pittsburgh on Sunday morning releasing practice squad linebacker Tariq Carpenter, who appeared in 3 games this season, all being elevated from the practice squad, all appearing on special teams, had made 2 tackles. It's kind of an unusual decision to make on a Sunday morning. Then we found out why later on Sunday. Carpenter earlier, I believe around 8 a.m. Sunday morning, was arrested on 1 charge of simple assault, allegedly a domestic violence situation with him and a girlfriend. We don't know exact details. There's allegations, but there is an arrest and a charge against Carpenter, so that led to his release. So if you're wondering why that happened, that's why it happened.
All right, and the other, I guess, thing, and you probably mentioned this, Miles Jack, there's a good chance we see him up this week.
Right. Tomlin mentioning him along with Eric Rowe. So, how many defensive players, more columns to my charting, I guess, is going to be the expectation on Saturday. So I don't know exactly how that will look. What Blake Martinez was inactive this week. Will they sit Walker? Will they do something else? Will injuries have an impact on those types of things? I'm not quite sure, but likely to see some new people in there.
And the reason Martinez was, I know a lot of people were upset why Martinez, but they had chose this time. To me, it came down to a decision between Marcus Golden and Blake Martinez, and neither one of those guys are going to. Martinez more so than Golden give you 4 or 5 snaps on special teams, but I think they viewed Landon Roberts as healthy enough to resume his normal role, which I think normally includes minimum special teams play, and then they just came out of 2 outside linebackers being in concussion protocol, so they probably didn't want to get in a situation where the lines were short again on that. So Martinez was inactive, I think, multi-pronged, because Landon Roberts back healthy, and the fears of really only having 3 outside linebackers that you could put on the field with 2 of them coming out of concussion protocol.
Right. Not that it matters much right now, but Kyron Johnson out of elevations, you kind of wonder who's going to fill some special teams hats and roles with the injuries, and Miles Jack's not going to be that guy, so we'll see. But I imagine Jack will be the elevation because Kyron Johnson is now out of elevations. All right, Dave, let's get into this game. Again, Pittsburgh losing to the Colts 30-13, dropping to 7-7 on the season, now out of the playoff race. The 10th seed, also last in the AFC North. They're not typically in the basement, especially this late in the season, but the season has been anything but typical in some sense, although it's been more of the same during this 3-game skid. Just sloppy football, unfundamental football, offense, defense, special teams. can't turn the ball over 3 times, can't have 101 yards in penalties, can't have all the miscommunication defensively, and Pittsburgh just really folded in the second half of this game.
Yeah, I think several disturbing things in that game. One of which was end of the third, beginning of the fourth there, right? When they how many times in a row did they run the football?
13 straight.
And apologies to Goodson and Trey Sermon. I like Trey Sermon coming out. I thought the Steelers might like him as well too, but they had lost Zach Moss in this game early to an injury after he had just 4 carries for 13 yards. In comes the combination of Goodson and Sermon, and those two were obviously the backs in the game. In the second half there, and it got to a point. It kind of reminded me of that game, the Steelers against the Bengals several years ago that we bring up from time to time, where I think Todd Haley just like run it again, run it again. It gave the feel of it was we know we're better than you football. You can't stop it. We know it. As they said in the movie Miracle, again. And they just got beaten down. They couldn't stop it. The push was going forward. And luckily, I think they held them to a field goal on that drive overall there and got off the field finally. But that sequence of plays there at that point, you knew that defense was done at that point. Now, leading up to that, offensively, you got that first touchdown there, and then special teams get you the ball. Great punt block by Connor Hayward there, and you set up shop at the 1. You eventually get that one in the end zone there. At that point, your defense was doing enough, but you lose your couple of safeties there. The popcorn, as Mike Tomlin says, just started popping all over the place at that point. Communication. Everything. Gardner Minshew hit in the middle of the field quite easily. They figured out they have tight ends on their roster too. You talked about Mo Alley Cox. You tried to tell people ahead of this game, and I think even who was it?
Nate that we had on?
Yeah, Nate had on. Say, well, he's been the third tight end option and all like that. Well, he only had 2 catches in this game, and they went for 21 yards and 1 touchdown there. But the whole middle of the field, teams have been attacking the spine of this defense quite easily. And it really showed once Gardner Minshew started to get his wheels there. I thought Gardner made a couple of good plays in this game out of structure. But within that, they were running the football good. He was hitting throws for the most part, making good decisions with the football. They obviously did what they like to do with the RPOs and all like that. And man, what if Pittman didn't go down in this game? I mean, he was already had 4 for 78 and probably would have had 5 for about I don't know what
100 or so. I think it would have been.
Yeah, had he caught that other one there, but. The Steelers had no answer on defense, and then their offense just, the pass protection, the whole offensive line was just really in totality miserable for the Steelers in this game. The tackles giving up pressures and sacks, obviously. Mitch Trubisky really not trusting things to step into some throws at one point. There were plays that were on the field to be made. Probably not enough to make a difference in this game the way the defense was ultimately playing here overall. But they couldn't get any kind of footing in the running game whatsoever. I mean, Warren had a couple of nice runs. Najee had one for 15 yards. But when you look at that 15-yarder that he had subtracted from the 33-yarder or 33 yards that he had on the 12 carries, I mean, you're talking about what, 18 yards on another 11 carries. Running backs, when they were getting stopped, it felt like they were getting stopped right in their chest. and getting blown backwards in there. And then, obviously what was in the second half on the tight ends couldn't block. We see Pat Freiermuth blown up on another crunch play. Again, right into the lap of Najee Harris. He avoids that, cuts to the outside, and then it looked like an old Mutual of Omaha Wild Kingdom, things that the scenes, the animal where the lions are all in a pack tracking down the gazelle or whatnot, and your parents wouldn't let you watch that scene because they found it disturbing. That's what it felt like on the tail end of that run, the way they were all chasing after Najee Harris and got him and then ripped the football out there on that one. So they were a very stupid penalty. I'm rambling. What happened.
I'm winding you up and letting you go. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know what happened at that point. I mean, really, as Mike Tomlin said on Tuesday there, I mean, it all came unraveled. When's the last time we heard Mike Tomlin use unraveled? But I mean, that's exactly what happened. It got unraveled quickly on both sides of the ball for this team.
That Harrison
I'll
analogy
come up for a breath of air here.
That Harrison analogy for an older generation, certainly not for my demographic. Besides
Marlon Perkins and Jim, Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom.
All right, I will Google that later because I have no idea what any of those things are. Besides the sloppy play, which has been a hallmark of this team's 3-game losing streak, my two overall thoughts from this game are, yes, Pittsburgh had injuries, and that's a factor. You have to acknowledge that. But as you mentioned, Dave, the Colts did too. I mean, they had Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson, their leading rushers. DJ Montgomery scored a touchdown. They lose Michael Pittman. Right. I mean, a guy that, and I don't mean to disrespect any of these guys. Right. I don't, you guys know me. I don't like calling them just guys and camp bodies, all that kind of stuff, but not exactly household names. So the Colts persevered through injuries and Pittsburgh did not. That's the bottom line of this game. Beyond that, the Colts showed mental toughness. They got punched in the mouth early. They were down 13-0. I can only imagine what the fans were saying. Oh, we're going to lose this game. We're going to get rolled. But they hit back. And when the Colts hit back, Pittsburgh folded. And they absolutely fell apart in the second half, offensively and defensively and on special teams and in coaching decisions. I mean, they completely just laid down. And a couple weeks ago, I think maybe after the Cardinals lost, Dan Moore talked about needing mental toughness. This team does. And they did not show it in this game. So, when Pittsburgh hit the Colts got back up. When the Colts hit Pittsburgh, they stayed down. That's the defining moments of these games.
Absolutely. It would have been very easy for them to roll over in that game the way it started for them, but
sure.
But they didn't. And their head coach did a phenomenal job of play calling. I think Minshew really kind of settled in even after the loss of Zach Moss and Pittman in there. And they didn't go away. They didn't go away from the script. I'm sure they didn't. They just said, look, we just got to stick with it here. They probably thought, look, we gave them 7 of these points off of a punt block. They're knowing their offense and the way that we can play, the Steelers are probably not going to score a lot of points. So if we just stay within our game plan here, we could probably scratch and claw and fight and get back in this if we just stick with the game plan that we have. So I don't envision anything changed when they were down 13-0. They just started executing more, and the Steelers came unraveled on defense. And you get into the low red zone area there on one of those touchdowns. I think it was second or third when they're, they run kind of one of those mesh rails and all like that. And miscommunication between Joey Porter and I guess Landon Roberts. Nobody picks the crosser up there. So that's blown there. I think at one point they had 10 men on the field for a play. They just could not cover the middle of the field stuff. And they just got beat in all facets, Now look, I think special teams for the most part held up sans their punting, which we could have a whole podcast on that now. And look, I understand one of the decisions to punt came after Tomlin decided not to kick the long field goal there, but Presley Harvin III does not help this team. The net punting in that game was something like 30.5 yards on the 4 punts there. And but the rest of the special teams, I mean, when you're looking for people to put on your winners list and you had to go down to talk about Igwebuikwe and the kick returns that he had in this game. You're pretty far down the list at that point. So I think some aspects of special teams, did what they were supposed to do. The punting was poor, but offensive defense just fell apart. And they couldn't block anybody. Man, that speed who they got back on defense really, I thought, played a good game, making some really strong hits, and their front four doing some TT stunts and some TE stunts. The Steelers had no answer for those whatsoever, just easily collapse in the pocket and get to the quarterbacks in there. And then once again, I thought on Sands, a couple of running plays that the Steelers had by Warren and Najee Harris, man, they were hitting downfield and they were driving those backs backwards.
Well, think about the very first play of the game. That's EJ Speed lighting up Najee Harris and getting under him and driving him to the ground. Talk about setting the tone for the day. I thought in the first half, the Colts defense was really more physical than Pittsburgh's offense. They really were for the entire game, but especially in the first half, setting the tone early. And then in the second half, the Colts offense became the more physical unit and really overwhelmed and overpowered Pittsburgh's defense. And that's kind of when they took control of the game, set the tone for the remainder of the game. So that just kind of, to me, that first snap was ultimately a microcosm of how the game would go. The Colts, the more physical team overall. A small aside, but I was thinking about this. Remember the old adage is if you block a punt, you win the game like 80% of the time. Pittsburgh has blocked a punt in the last 2 games and lost both those games. Has any team ever done that? Block punts in back-to-back games and lost both of them? Probably never. But at least they made a splash play there. But it goes back to, like you said, the offense, defense, execution issues. Then, you watch this team sometimes and there's snippets of plays, but you wonder, does Pittsburgh know their personnel? On that Najee Harris fumble you referenced, you're running crunch. And so you have Freiermuth, the Y off player, supposed to down block the 3-tech. Why are you asking Freiermuth to down block DeForest Buckner on a wham block like that? When they run that, last year they used it with Gentry. This year they've been running it with Darnell Washington, a big body kind of extra tackle type of dude. It's a tough block to make and you got to have that secured well. And, Buckner just walks Freiermuth back, forces Harris wide, plays a wreck, he fumbles. I mean, do you not understand your own personnel of how to use guys and how to put them in positions to win and succeed and play to their strengths, minimize the weaknesses? How are you running crunch with Pat Freiermuth? I mean, it's just one play, but it led to the fumble and the Colts scored the next play. And just, I can't get my head around those things.
And some of the things they were doing with pulling the guards interior were, help produce some of those good runs. But there was no, Mike Tomlin has talked about fluidity a lot, lately. And then even so, when they would get to look like they could run downhill, you get the holding calls. Now, I do think, I thought the Mason Cole holding call was a bit ticky-tacky on one of those Warren runs, but it is what it is. The Connor Hayward hold. I think you had a Freiermuth hold. I think both tackles decided they want in on the action. Did they not? But I mean,
Moore was flagged. Yeah, Baby Jones was too.
In total, you had 8 penalties for 101 yards. You're talking about an offense that struggles to get 250 total yards, net yards of offense a game, and you're giving half of it away in penalties or giving it to the other side. At that point, you're not going to win a lot of games that way, especially when you turn the football over once in your own end of the field. The negative plays, man, I had this pulled up somewhere, and we kept going back to that several points during the season here. I wish I could find.
I was going to ask, how many did they have? I had that open-ended question earlier in this week. If you factor in penalties and sacks and negative runs and turnovers, I mean, there had 20, had to have been 20 negative plays.
Yeah, it was like 15 or something, I think, something along those lines. I think I had it back, like you said, sacks, penalties on offense, intercept. Yeah, probably when you add into the interceptions as negative plays. It probably was around 20. I remember I started to, me, I get going on something and, tinsel pops up somewhere and I run off. Yeah, squirrel. and off I go running in another direction there. But I did have this pulled up. I was going to table them all up and make a chart out of, but I got distracted there. But it was lengthy, and let's say it was 18. All right.
Okay.
How many total plays did you have in this game? 54 in total. So I mean, you're giving away a quarter.
That's
of
1/3. That's 1/3. 18 of 54.
Okay, 18. So you're giving away 1/3 of them there to negative plays.
Not even considering the defensive penalties, 15-yard penalties. Right. You got a Porter DPI, of course, the Kazee, hitting disqualification there. Creating significant yardage the other way for the Colts' benefit.
And then how do you offset? Because teams have games where they have an influx of negative plays, right? So how do you offset that? Well, you better convert your third downs. They were 4 of 12 on third down in this game. Another way is explosive plays. Remember those 20-yard or more plays? They had one of those in this game. You could also kind of offset it if you can get a running game going whatsoever, which they couldn't. So, I mean, you just had you had 4 sacks, like we talked about in the negative plays there. You start adding all those things together, and it's just, you get what you got.
Yeah, Pittsburgh cannot win if they can't run the football. They were under 3 yards per carry until I think the final meaningless Jalen Warren run. They can't convert on third down. They're sub 30% on third down over the last 3 games combined. They have the second worst third down offense in the season since 1999, and they're tracking to be worse in 2019. They're averaging, 15-something points per game. It's their worst scoring output since 1970, which is likely to hold and stay true. And it's only gotten worse post Matt Canada under Eddie Faulkner and Mike Sullivan. They turned the ball over increasingly with Trubisky at quarterback. And that's the one thing Kenny Pickett, I shouldn't say the one thing, but that's one thing that Kenny Pickett did really well. I mean, and you kind of feel the loss of him, not from this was a top 5 quarterback to your backup situation, but just a guy that took great care of the football versus somebody who does not. Kenny Pickett has the second lowest interception percentage rate in the NFL this year. Mitch Trubisky has the second highest interception rate in the NFL this season, only behind Jimmy Garoppolo, who was benched much earlier in the year and played terrible, including against Pittsburgh. So, I mean, just does that alone from a team that took care of the football, that allows you to compete in games, keep the score down, not give the opposing offense short fields, et cetera, you remove that aspect, that becomes almost impossible for Pittsburgh to win, and then tack on the injuries and defensive penalties and all the other stuff happening, lack of a run game, and you're getting ugly losses like this.
Alex, their second third down conversion of the game, both of their first 2, I think, came on, was it their second drive? I believe. The first one was a 3rd and 3, the pass over the middle to Freiermuth for 5 yards. 3 plays later, faced with a 3rd and 6. That's the one where he hit Pickens on that first square in over to the left side, I believe, for 15 yards. And so, in other words, their second third down conversion came with 5:02 left in the first quarter. And what did I tell you they ended up with on the day? 4 for 12. So they only converted 2 more third downs the rest of the way.
Yeah, not good enough. You can't get chunk plays and you can't convert on third down. How do you plan to move the football? You either move the football through big chunk plays and avoid third down, or you convert on third down. And Pittsburgh does neither. And so you get ugly outputs, 13 points, and you're aided by being at the half-yard line on that block punt, and you still went backwards and still, luckily we're able to score out of that. Pittsburgh, in 5 straight games, Dave, has been held under 20 points. 5 straight games under 20 points. Has not happened since 1969. Chuck Noll's first year on the job. Pittsburgh won their first game, lost their next 13. So we are looking at a historically bad offense, even worse in 2019. And at least in 19, you could sit there and say they really had no talent that year. Losing Ben, losing Connor first stretch, other injuries, and they had just some random dudes trying to get you through the season. This team, theoretically, on paper, looks like it has some talent. And it feels like they've never even played a game together. I mean, you watch that one third down miss from Trubisky to Freiermuth. I know they probably haven't gotten a ton of reps this year, but still, they're both veteran guys. They've been in the locker room together the last 2 seasons. How do you miss a wide open 5-yard over the ball route? Freiermuth begins to move. Trubisky thinks he's going to settle. They miss. I'm not 100% sure who that was on, but regardless, you have to hit it. You have to hit the wide open throw against zone coverage to convert on third down. And I think as Mike Tomlin mentioned today, that led to the Colts driving into the half and scoring, taking the lead into halftime. Just basic fundamental football. Take care of the football. Don't be penalized. Communicate well. They can't do it.
Routine things routinely. They're not doing, obviously. And it's just was magnified again. And look, you turn the football over 3 times in a game, you're not going to win a game if you're not getting them back there. And, we talk. Here's the thing. I'm tired of people talking about injuries. Has this team got snake bit, especially on the defensive side of football? Yes. Man, look at what the Cleveland Browns are doing. I mean, every week it seems like they lose 2 guys, and even in that game yesterday, or on whenever they played Sunday, J.C. Treader, I bet I know for a fact Joe Flacco didn't know all the good guys' names on that offensive line that were playing for him. But at one point, J.C. Treader was the only one that you really recognize the name on that offensive line. And they've had injuries on both sides of the football, and they're 9-5 right now. So don't talk. Injuries are unfortunate. Yes, the Steelers have gotten snake bit, especially on the defensive side of football. And yes, they were without the starting quarterback, Kenny Pickett, but the rest of the offense was healthy, Yeah,
and the Colts, again, they're on their backup quarterback, granted for a longer stretch of time, but they lost Richardson to start the season. That was a big blow, and to lose Moss and to lose Pittman, and they're on Sermon and Goodson and Montgomery and Mo Cox making plays. I mean, they made plays. They fought through their adversity. Pittsburgh did not.
Right. All right. What positive stuck out on offense?
Well, go ahead. I mean, I don't even know where to begin on that. The O-line, you mentioned it a lot, but I should mention it too. I mean, just a mess in this one. Not that I'm beholden to PFF grades, but I think of the 145 or so offensive linemen qualifiers that were graded this week. I think I should say 3 of the 5 Steelers starters finished like 130 or below, and none of them cracked the top 100, and James Daniels received a 0.0 pass block rating, which is almost unheard of, almost difficult to do. So a really poor game for him. I think he had been solid in pass pro up until this game, but it was a mess, as you said, stunt pickup and just securing the edge, and that D-line for the Colts just eating. They were more physical the entire game, run game, pass game, no question about that. Positives, I don't even know. Deontay scored again.
I thought Deontay got some nice separation on a couple of plays there. Did some good things a couple of times. I like the touchdown call that they had with kind of getting him rubbed off. For a moment there, I thought Allen Robinson was going to get, because the way he kind of stuck his arm out, I thought he was going to get offensive pass interference there, but he didn't. That was a positive there. There were a couple of inside runs with some pulling guards. I think with Sayamalo, I think that had a couple of nice running lanes in there.
Harris ran hard. He created some yards after contact, I guess.
Yeah, I thought Warren played hard. I mean, he touched the football, 10 runs, averaged 4 yards per carry, had a long of 11, had 5 catches for 28 yards. I mean, he was pretty much your offense. When you look at yards after the catch, what did I write up the other day? This offense had 50 total yards after the catch, and I think Warren was responsible for like 30 something yards of that. I mean, they're not getting their wide receivers in positions where they could get yards after the catch. On that one square in to George Pickens, he had to go down low to go get it. So there's no yards after the catch opportunity. It's like Groundhog Day, man. When it comes to this team, they can't run screens worth a damn still. None of that. They're holding. So I think we quickly recap what little positives there were on defense. I mean, on offense. What on defense? I thought the effort was there with guys like Roberts and TJ and Highsmith. But man, I know Ogunjobi had a little bit better game. I think the tape kind of bears that out a little bit there overall there, but the rest of them. It's hard to find much of any positives there. And obviously, when you get into the score situation there, they're not going to let T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith start making difference in pass rush. They're going to get the ball out. They're going to run the ball 13 times yeah. in a row against you. I mean, how many plays did they run offensively? They had 65. You can throw out the last couple of them in the game there. So let's whittle them down to 60 meaningful plays. 13 of them came on 13 consecutive runs. It's a good chunk of time and plays on their part there. So there just wasn't a lot to write about. I mean, Kazee had a nice hit on a pass breakup early on.
Yeah, I mean, Watt had a good game. I mean, he beat Freeland, 2 times. We knew that rip and dip under the 6'8". Freeland was going to be an effective move for him. I appreciated Peterson. I thought holding down the fort at safety. If they didn't have him, I don't know what they would have done to try to get out of that game. They just routed people at safety at that point. So can appreciate him stepping up. And I thought just trying to do what he can to just get through the game. But yeah, I mean, there aren't many positives here. I mean, the Colts ran 63% of their plays in Pittsburgh territory, 63% of the play, almost 2/3 in Pittsburgh territory. You're rarely, if ever, going to find numbers as ugly as that. I'll need to see the all 22. I really have not watched it much, but going back through the TV tape to chart this game, I think I got concussed apparently late, but Cam Hayward was getting just washed the whole game. I mean, just blown off the ball. I thought Pittsburgh's D-line just got no push up front. Adams was getting washed. Hayward was even struggling against tackles, against doubles. That the Colts double teams or duo blocks were really, really effective, but even on some single base blocks, I thought the D-line was not winning the point of attack, and Hayward, to me, again, I got to check the all 22, but his run defense looked really, really shaky.
What about when Quentin Nelson was on the move? You don't want no part of that, did you? None of the Steelers defensive backs wanted any part of that freight train coming. That
was a 31-yard run by Goodson, right?
Yeah, Brandon Thorne posted a couple of clips of that on Twitter, and man, that reminded you of old Alan Faneca film when he used to get out on the hoof like that. And here's the other thing. They let's go back to some quick pregame decisions here with the inactive list. Leal active, Loudermilk inactive. That was a curious decision. They probably could have used Loudermilk against the run in those 13 plays. But even Leal, when Leal got on the field, 9 snaps in total, 7 of them came on the final 7 plays of the game, right?
Yeah, I don't know what their plan is with Leal. Last 3 weeks, all he's done is play in the middle, the final moments of blowouts. I mean, against the Cardinals, that's what he did against the Colts. That's what he did. He was down for the Patriots game. So, I mean, maybe he just had a good week of practice and had a fire under his butt, and they wanted to reward him for that. I don't know. It wouldn't have made a difference, obviously, Loudermilk or Leal, but I mean, Leal has no purpose on this team right now.
Not yet. No, I mean, not yet to this point and all. And Herbig, most of his snaps seem to come later in the game.
Yeah, I mean, he subbed in late on that 13 straight runs, and he got a run stop to kind of help stop the bleeding and force the Colts to throw and settle for a field goal. Speaking of which, Dave, let's talk about the Tomlin decision. Big spot there, 24-13, to either attempt the 56-yard field goal or have Presley Harvin punt, and Boswell walks out, probably just assuming, okay, it's a 56-yarder. I'm in a closed-roof environment. I'm the greatest Steelers kicker in history from 50+. I'm 80% of my career from that range. I can do it in Pittsburgh. I can do it in Indy. And then Tomlin pulled him off the field and put Harvin out there, who kicked a 22-yard punt or whatever it was to the Colts, I think 17. And Colts got that yardage back in 2 plays. And they went on there. That's when they had their 13 straight runs that just really took Pittsburgh's soul and ended the game from there. So Tomlin, his explanation for it was dubious at best. I really don't even understand what he was trying to get his point across in terms of explaining why he punted. But he's got to own that, because that if you make that, I mean, it's 24-16. It's a 1-possession game. You don't know what can happen there. Changes the complexion of things. I think once that happened and Pittsburgh, punted, I think the team just kind of realized this thing's over, and morally they were just out of gas.
He's explained it a couple of times now, and he went in more detail during his Monday press conference and all. I still don't like it. I mean, I understand why he's trying to explain it. But his decision was based on what if he misses. And I don't like that. That's the root of, well, if he misses, field position, our defense leaking, yada, yada, yada. All of it's based on the assumption that your great kicker can't make that kick. I think there's a little bit of a morale boost to have there if you get within a one-score game there. Boz has done nothing but deserve to attempt such a thing indoors like that. The whole thing stinks on that decision. I don't care what other way he tries to color in the numbers on this. The whole thing, if it's 62, maybe, but anything under 60, I'm rolling Boz out there to do it. And even Boz, you could tell the way he unstrapped his chin strap at that. He wasn't happy about it. What was the surrender index on that?
98th percentile on the season, 95th percent since 1999. So you can call it a very cowardly. You might say you were living in your fears on that play.
Yeah, there's nothing about that decision that I like. And then to turn around and look, I know it's a short field. You're asking your punter to do a lot there, but
you don't ask him to do much, dude. He can pin that. I mean, that's not asking him to do anything he can't do.
Okay, well, I mean, here's the thing. If you make a decision like that, you better come out with that ball at the 5-yard line or less.
Yeah, Harvin is not. He's been a mess. And he got off to a decent start this year, but he has just regressed hard. They got to change punters. This is last
Why
year.
have they not? Why have they not? I was thinking about this laying in bed last night. Is it all? How much is it's related to the holder battery type situation? And if that's the reason you're doing it, shame. I understand you're going to upset the apple cart, and Boswell's not going to be happy having a new holder to work with. No, get over it. That's got to be the only reason why at this point that Harvin's being held on to.
You need that holder for all those field goals you're not going to kick, apparently. I mean, just to go back to Tomlin's decision, his explanation, you're right. He was saying the defense was leaking. So his plan was to immediately put his defense on the field anyway without any chance of more points being put on the board. When you're punting, your defense is on the field. You're leaking regardless. Your defense is going to take the field here in a play or two, whether you kick the field goal and miss or make it, or if you punt the football. So your defense leaking is moot compared to the decision. The decision is you have a 56-yarder. Can Boz make it? What's the conditions? Obviously, you're inside a dome, a roof closed, so there's no weather to be concerned about. Pre-game warm-ups. Did Boz will hit from there? Is he healthy? Is he good? All those boxes seem to be checked. There's no reason. And yeah, maybe, Tomlin's saying that Trubisky should have checked it down and gotten yardage to make it a more makeable field goal. Sure, that's fine. That's on Trubisky. I agree with that. Nothing to do with Boz, though. You can still make him from 56. If you were at midfield and you checked it down and gotten 11 yards on third and forever, does that, change the equation? It's a 56-yard field goal. It's all that matters. Boz can make it. He should have been out there to kick.
I agree. Everything. And are they going to change punters this week?
I mean,
Brad Wing's still out there, ain't he?
Is he out there still? He got to work at it. I think he got to work out with Denver, but yeah, he's probably still out there. Yeah, they probably should. Will they? I don't know. I mean, Tomlin, said they're going to look at everything. You think the punter would be something to look at? They need a field flipper. They need an elite punter. If your offense is going to be as bad as Pittsburgh's offense is and may continue to be, you need an elite guy that's going to win field position, and they don't have that.
If you're going to make a decision to change out your quarterback and talk about other decisions being on the table, punter's got to be one of them.
Yeah, it has to be. I don't know. You can't take anything off the table. Now, some people also, and this is probably a lengthier
now look,
discussion.
Harvin's not the reason why they're losing all these games, but it would help to have somebody that can get the football out of there.
Yeah, or he's not helping you win games. You're not helping you win games, then that's all that really matters. Now, this is a longer discussion about Matt Ariza. Now that I think everything's been dropped against him, and will some team eventually give him a chance? And do they want to take on even just the storylines that come along with it, even though he's been exonerated from all the allegations against him? That'll be a discussion point. I don't know what his holding experience is either, and that's going to be one component of it. But point is, I mean, this team, if Tomlin wants to be true to his word about turning over every stone, punter has to be on the table.
I agree. Speaking of stones and pebbles.
What do we have? Where are we going with this?
Pebbles in the shoe. Pickens.
Oh, in terms of Pickens. Oh, right. Okay. That took me a second. I got there. A little tape delay for me. Yeah. I mean, you had apparently the educational conversation. Mike Tomlin telling Bob Labriola pregame, sitting down with Pickens during the week and talking about, how to handle frustration and be a professional and attitude, all those types of things. And then you have a goal line run by Jalen Ward, and Pickens just throws the old arm out there at the corner, lets him go by, and makes a tackle on Warren short of the goal line. And so you're again having the continued conversation, whether it's the players, whether it's the coaches, whether it's Tomlin himself, nothing seems to be getting through to George Pickens.
It doesn't. And we've said several times, he's very, very talented guy. I understand why he gets as frustrated as he gets at times in some of these games, but he's got to be able to have us stop talking about him like this. We need to be talking about George Pickens making plays on the football field and end it at that.
Yeah, or just not talk about all this crap. I mean, whether it's just if he just makes that block, no one really talks about Pickens at all. So, yeah, I mean, it's just little things. And when your team is struggling and things are really going down the tubes and you're on this skid, you're just trying to find ways to get a win, get something to feel good about. You got to do the little things. You got to be detailed. You have to be fundamental. You got to have that effort to do that small thing that goes the extra mile to compensate for all the crap you're dealing with. And Pickens is not getting there. And then even you pointed this out on the interception return, the second one from Trubisky. Not sure where Pickens was running. He was running in not a direction that the defense was going.
I'm still trying to figure that out, but I don't know why he was running in the direction he was running. But I was obviously more concerned about the effort on the block and all like that. And people saying, I'm sure a lot of pushback saying all the problems on this team and you're gonna go after George Pickens. Look, we've talked about George Pickens in the negative light too much, and we don't need to be talking about him for some of these things. That's where the concern is. And when you lose like they've been losing, it's easy to go back through the tape and pick up some of these things, and it's easy for national media to jump on and start talking these things. Once again, I think he's incredibly talented, and Mike Tomlin, in so many words said today, just a mature factor, right?
Right. Just be detailed. This team's lacking detail. And so you see those things that are very much in your control, blocking a cornerback on the goal line on a run to your side, not even like it's the other way. And you see receivers kind of just let up and just watch the play go by. Okay, you can live with that. But on a toss play to your side where you're going to be actively engaged with the cornerback on that play, I don't know what he's thinking there. Not thinking, clearly.
How worried are you about him? It's saddening that we have to every week kind of start talking, but I'm concerned about him on a week-to-week basis.
I know I downplayed some stuff before, and we're not at some of the levels that the other receivers and AB and the like have been at, but you just kind of wonder, you evaluate every single guy, and I don't know what more can be done to get through to this guy. I don't know what else can be said and done, what strategy can be employed to try to get things to click for him. But you talk about a culture issue, you talk about a detail issue, and you're seeing those issues seemingly, happen with George Pickens. So yeah, there's an increasing concern there for myself.
And look, it's not like he can't block. I mean, we had tons of clips last year of him sitting people down, and giving a lot of good effort on play. So he's got it in him. He's just, the frustration's just getting to him.
Yeah, you need guys who are buying in and doing the little things. That's what I keep coming back to. You have to do the little things when you've lost 3 in a row and your season's on the line, and you got to have this game. You got to do the little things to get you to victory that overcomes the injuries and the miscues and other stuff like that. And you're not seeing that. And then, Damontae after the game talking about the defense leaking, just, stuff. And again, is it, the reason why you lost the game, but there's these thorns in your side where you sit there and say, man, you don't understand what is happening right now. You're not reading the room, not reading how things are going.
They say they're not supposed to talk about each other's money. They're probably not supposed to talk about the other side of the football either.
Right. And he talked about the offense needed to make plays and convert on third down. So it wasn't just on the defense, but just talk about the offense and the issues and be candid about them. I want guys to be candid, but you have to kind of understand how things get perceived. You just have to be kind of self-aware about some of these things. And with all the criticism he's received, the team has received, just stop putting your foot in your mouth.
What do you think about Najee not talking to the media again?
I mean, I can respect it. He probably doesn't want to, have a headline-y quote, and he's been frustrated. All I know is Najee's not having a good time, and you wonder what his future in Pittsburgh will be.
But it's their job. I mean, they're supposed to talk to the media, right?
Yeah, is every single player, I guess, supposed to, or at least be made available for interviews?
Made available, from what I understand, unless he can give 5-cent answers if he wants to.
Right, I'm just here so I don't get fined,
Right,
kind of thing.
right. I understand. I understand why he's not.
I'd rather him not do the media session than have some big headlining quote that makes it a story.
Sure, but I mean, anything you say, any of them at this point is gonna be easily. It's easy to take anything any of these guys say.
That's why he's declining
out of context, right? Well, I mean, and then what happens? You get gigged on for not talking to the media.
I mean,
and it looks looks like you're pouting and all.
Yeah, I'd rather get because everyone forgets about that. We remember the Johnson comments and Pickens comments much more than we remember a guy not doing the interview. So I get it. I mean, it's not something that I even really think about too much, to be honest with you.
I'll tell you this: he's not having a good time this year.
No, and you wonder. I mean, the fifth-year option probably gets declined, and again, we're kind of a ways away. You just wonder how many guys ask out this team and say, "Trade me." I don't know how many will. I don't know if anyone will. But I wouldn't be surprised if somebody does at some point this offseason.
Right. Or they might look to actively trade him regardless,
Yeah, that is also true. All right. Any other thoughts here, Dave? I think we've covered things. We beat this team up pretty good.
Yeah, I think we got our money's worth today. Are we leaving anything on the table here that we needed to talk about? Any decisions or anything? What about your article this morning? It was very well written and articulated.
Thank you. I mean, just calling out the issues for this team. They have to solve the issues, and they don't know how to do that right now, clearly, but it's important to at least call out the issues. And some of them are obvious with injuries and, subpar coaching and, that kind of stuff. I mean, I really kind of thought about more and more what I refer to the empty calorie players, the players that dress but really don't contribute in a meaningful way, that are just kind of there. And, in terms of snap counts, you look at a Marcus Golden, who's been, I think, a solid player this year and good teammate, but just doesn't play many snaps. Sees 8 snaps a game, and that's about it. Whether you're talking about a Liao that really has no purpose other than just to play the final few snaps and blow out defeats. Not sure what that's about. The empty routes that Calvin Austin and Allen Robinson run. These guys run a ton of routes. They play a fair amount. They don't get involved in this offense in any sort of way. That kind of stuff where, every team has kind of the back end of their active guys that maybe don't play a ton, but Pittsburgh seems to have a higher degree of those names.
All right. If people haven't got a chance to read that, going over to Steelers Depot. It's well laid out, well articulated by Alex. Good job on that. All right. Shall we get to some emails? Boy, we got email box full of them.
All right. Let's get to some emails and close out today's show.
Thomas John Lloyd writes in, hello, fan of the site, podcast, satisfied, ad-free supporter, bummed out fan. When is the best time to cut Trubisky? Do it now so you can poach a practice squad quarterback, if only to kick the tires, wait until the offseason. Maybe I'm being a bit of a slow poke with my thinking here, but I don't believe Trubisky is worth the salary. Merry Christmas. Hope everybody at Steelers Depot is doing well. Thomas, thanks for the email there. It's not going to happen now. When it would happen would be before you pay him his $1 million March roster bonus. That would be the time. They obviously got the Penn State kid on the practice squad right now, at least until Pickett is back. Long story short, you're not going to cut him until March.
Yeah, that's not going to happen in season.
Let's see, where do we go from here? From Robbie Dugan. Happy holidays. I figured now would be a good time to say thank you for all the coverage, the insights, the passion, and knowledge on both the podcast and Steelers Depot. So what a big offseason coming up. The defense has had some splash, but they've taken bend, don't break to the extreme. Injuries are brutal, but watching the Colts run 13 times in a row was just sad. Offense has been worse. I don't even know what to say about that side of the ball. Hypothetically, what would be the 3 top things for GMs, Kozora and Brian, to do in the offseason? Thanks again, and not to forget the contributors at Steelers Depot all year. Best around. Thanks, Rob. Rob, we've got 3 games left in the season, and we're going to be talking all offseason about unrestricted free agents and which directions that they should go. So I don't want to, spend a lot of time here. I appreciate the question. I know a lot of you have similar questions to that, but 3 top things. I don't know what are kind of things up top of your head. They're going to need They need another inside linebacker for starters. They need a center. They're going to need another tackle. I mean, we could just start going down the list here at the holes that now presented themselves on this roster, right? I mean, the trouble isn't naming three; it's stopping at three. Stealing kind of a Chuck Noll kind of playing off of a quote that he had
cutting,
there.
Right?
Yeah. The problem isn't cutting; it's stopping.
Well, to me, and you're right. We'll talk about this more. This team's going to give us plenty of time to talk about this. I promise you that. Quarterback. You're in two camps, and I mentioned this one of the recent episodes. It's either Operation Save Kenny Pickett or Operation Replace Kenny Pickett. So you decide, is Pickett your guy? I mean, we're going to assume the team will stick with him for 2024. So it becomes, okay, how can you get an offense that looks like an NFL offense that can put points on the board, not be the 20th something ranked offense the way that they have been 3 years running? So that means, center, another receiver. They have no slot production the last 2 years, so those kind of things. So it starts around, what is the future of the quarterback position? Who's your starter for 2024? That begins there. And then once you decide that, you start building out the offense to put some points on the board.
We'll talk about Calvin Austin and how his usage on the Wednesday show after we talk about go through to all 22 and that kind of stuff there. So I don't want to get deep into that. Look, I was asked about the quarterback position the other day from a reader. Here's where I'm at right now today, especially knowing that it looks like that's it for Mitch Trubisky. I don't care where you do it. Draft a quarterback this year. And look, I know the odds of finding the next Brock Purdy that late in the draft are slim to none. Just throw a dart at it. Just throw a damn dart at it. Get a couple of the kids to come in to compete as undrafted free agents, and maybe a washout from somewhere else to give you 4 quarterbacks on the roster, however you want to do it. But and I know that there's not going to be enough draft picks to go around to fill all the holes that we suggest they should do. But I am in camp, draft a quarterback somewhere right now.
Yeah, that's fine. And it's probably going to happen, especially if you move on from Trubisky. And if you don't retain Rudolph, then your quarterback room is just Kenny Pickett. And you got to fill that probably with a veteran and then a draft pick in there. But the bigger question is, who's your starter? Who's your long-term answer at quarterback? And that's the first question that has to be reckoned with.
Sure. And I still think that they're going to go with Pickett, there. And if that's what they deem that they want to do, still draft another quarterback to add to that room. At least get in the cycle of evaluating. And if he washes out after 1 year, draft another one. That's where I'm at with this thing right now. Keep the room full with other options to look at.
I get that, but let's assume that Pickett's the guy for next year. How do you help him the most? How do you build around him? That becomes the next immediate question. I mean,
like I said, there's too many holes. I know, and I'm not. It's hard to justify it, but I would figure out a way to justify it.
Yeah, I mean, again, you can still draft a Southern quarterback and still hopefully build a better offense. But like the immediate concerns become, okay, how do we get more receiving help, O-line help? I mean, what's all on the table to do that and try to give Pickett the best chance? And of course, who's your coordinator? Who's going to be coaching Kenny Pickett? That's going to be the most critical hire Pittsburgh has made since hiring Tomlin in 2007.
All right, let's go here to Todd Bays. No confidence. Good to see Tomlin has finally come through on his promise to unleash hell in December. Unfortunately, has been unleashed on us fans. Serious question. Assuming Tomlin is back, and I figure he will be, he says, unless they lose out, I have a serious lack of confidence in him riding the ship. Questions at quarterback and a roster with several holes, and that to the fact I have zero confidence in his ability to hire quality coaches to get more out of the roster with the promotions of Butler and the average Austin on D combined with the promotions of Randy Fichtner and Matt Cannon on offense. Seems like everyone could see at the end of last year it was time for Cannon to go, but he couldn't see it and rolled him back out there. What say you guys? But I am less than hopeful that changes will produce positive results based on recent history. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to you guys. I appreciate the work you do. Todd, I can't find any fault with anything that you said there. It is hard as a Steelers fan right now, especially going into this season, thinking that, man, at the very least, get into the playoffs, win a playoff game, and maybe that Super Bowl window, we can crack it open there. Right now, you're looking at this roster and you're looking at the holes and you're looking at the quarterback position, you're looking at the coaching staff, you're looking at it's depressing. It's flat out depressing.
Yeah, I'm not even mad at it. I was mad after the Patriots game. I was mad after the Cardinals game. I'm just kind of depressed and just kind of all right, accepting my fate that this is how this thing's going to go. And yeah, to the point, what confidence do you have that they're going to get this thing right based on how things have gone? It's hard to be confident. So, and even if they were confident, and I'm sure, Pittsburgh will present confidence, it's put up or shut up. It's, as you said, Dave, don't tell me about the labor pain, show me the baby. And that's what this team has to do. So yeah, it's right to be skeptical, and whoever they hire, you can't sit there and say, okay, that's the guy, it's going to work. You hope and you think, and you cross your fingers, but we got to see results. We have not seen results for this team in quite some time.
And I know the diehards will say, well, you're not a good fan. You just got to trust the organization. No playoff wins since 2016. I don't trust nothing right now.
Trust is earned.
Right. We've got to get, that's a good point. We've got to get the reasons why they deserve the trust. One of our longtime listeners and readers sent me a picture. Seth, did Seth send you that picture, Paladin?
I don't believe I did get that.
He sat up near the suites in Indianapolis. Evidently, He's got a great shot of Omar Khan and Art Rooney II peering through the glass there. They look like they just watched a train wreck happen.
They did in some sense.
There, I mean, and it's not a full-on front face view of Art Rooney II, but it looks like he just looks, emotionless, emo. Is that what the kids say? Emo?
I don't know if it applies to Art Rooney in that solemn Art Rooney. Sure, you probably can read the room pretty well of how that conversation was going up there.
All right, let's move on. Let's try to take one more before we get out of here. John, this is a name I don't recognize. John Crom. Hey guys, it looks like it's officially mock draft season. Looking forward to all the content your site has to offer. But seriously, how does it feel to never have a dull off season while covering this team? This will be the most weighty off season I can remember in a long time, perhaps even more so than trying to find a new GM. What do you guys think? Appreciate all your efforts. Thanks for being awesome. Look, they're pretty eventful overall, just in trying to get into the draft cycle and diagnose what not only what we think they need and the cap and the directions they might take in free agency, and then getting into the players and trying to whittle down who we think they might be draft. So I'm not looking ahead as it being more dull or less dull right now. I mean, here's the thing, John. If anything, I think we've got clarity on a lot of decisions that this team. There's less black and white, or gray area. I think it's more black and white, especially on several of the decisions that they have, that I think they have to make when it comes to like March roster bonuses, and I think the holes are very easily definable at this point. So I'm not looking at it as a more weighty offseason than the next.
Well, I do feel like we've said the last two offseason cycles, this is like the most important offseason Pittsburgh has had in quite some time, going from the post-Ben era when he retired for the start of the 2022 offseason, and then Omar Khan and that regime change for really his first full offseason for the end of the 2023 season. So this kind of feels like that. But regardless of where you want to rank it, it's an important offseason to really kind of reset and plan out the direction of this team and hopefully get it right. But again, it's hard to really believe them because we felt like that was the path. They were on the right path this year, and it's all come unglued. And you really wonder, how did they get it so wrong? I guess is the question. How did they really just miss the mark from what it looked like they were building, what they were trying to build, to what has actually happened? And again, injuries play a role, but welcome to the NFL, welcome to sports. Every team's dealing with that. How did they miss things so significantly?
Yeah, I think you can look back to a couple recent drafts of Kevin Colbert's too, right? You start looking back at and once again, I think it's a bonus anytime you get anything after the third or fourth round to hit here. But now you kind of you're already questioning what's going to happen with Najee. I mean, you go back even before that, some of the first rounders, and how that played out for an organization that believes heavily in building through the draft and less so in free agency. Man, you got to hit those first round draft picks, right?
You do. And I don't mean to send you down a rabbit hole. It's a long episode, so I apologize. But that triggered a thought. And I read about this for my issues article this morning. I want to read off, maybe kind of take this a couple classes at a time, the day 3 picks that Pittsburgh has made, not including this current rookie class because they're still fresh. And just tell me, who do you think the best name has been out of these groups, the most productive player starting in 2022 day 3 picks? Calvin Austin, Connor Hayward, Mark Robinson, Chris Oladokun, 2021, Dan Moore, Buddy Johnson, Isaiah Loudermilk, Quincy Roche, Trey Norwood, Presley Harvin, 2020, Anthony McFarland Jr., Kevin Dotson, Antoine Brooks Jr., Carlos Davis. From there, who has been the best day 3 pick?
Stop! I'm dead already.
Right.
I mean, Alex Highsmith was in that group, right?
No, he's a third round. We're talking day 3.
Oh, you're talking about day 3. Jeez. I mean, Connor, for what you're asking him to do, I mean, he's exceeded
fine
expectations as far as I'm concerned.
Sure. I mean, there's some guys that have produced for you in some capacity, but not like a, real starter, really found this diamond in the rough that Pittsburgh had been known for in previous, regimes.
Yeah, it feels like you're going to be kicking yourself about the whole Kevin Dotson thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he talked about that, move him to right guard, and I'll egg on my face for that. I thought the idea of him going back to right guard had some value, but not as important as
I talked a lot about that.
No, you were right. Yeah.
That now look, the way he had played, I'm not surprised. I am not surprised the way it played out with him being jettisoned. I don't think anybody is, right?
Sure. We expected it.
But I mean, when you're taking a guy that had all the playing time coming out of college on one side, and you forcing them to the other side there, and then he has since come out now and said on a podcast or something that him moving back to right guard's the best thing that's ever happened to him, so to speak.
100%, and he's having a career year, and he's going to get paid a ton this offseason by some team or the Rams.
Yeah, he ought to be sending a Christmas card back to Pittsburgh right now for sure. I don't know. You rattled off so many names there.
Right.
And
I sent you. We'll deal with it for a later show. I sent you the link to the draft history. I'm just kind of scrolling through the day 3 names, and yeah, you're going to miss on a lot of these guys, and most of them aren't going to become starters, let alone stars. But yeah, I think the day 3, you have not really found a day 3 starter that's been a quality guy. The best names I've come up with in the last 10 or so classes have been Jesse James and Dan Moore, and I guess Connor Hayward to an extent. You got some special teams guys in there like Medikevich, and you found something there, but even just one in the last 10 or so classes, can you get one day 3 guy that's a real hit, a real starter? Now they did find Jalen Ward undrafted, so
sure,
that's probably a good counter, but I just feel like those names have been absent.
He's leading the team, and Jalen Warren's leading the team in total yards from scrimmage right now.
And I assume it'll probably end that way. I don't know what his margin is, but he probably will finish top spot.
Yeah, there's room, I think. I mean, he's ahead. That's and who had that on the bingo card at the start of the season there. All right, Alex. I think we're a couple hours, right?
Yeah, we're pretty long. I got an interview here soon, for a weekly show. So we'll wrap things up and come back on Wednesday.
All right. You can follow me on Twitter /X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button, upper right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button that way. And obviously, sorry we couldn't get to all the emails. Just way too many of them in there. But if you think we missed them and it's still pertinent, resend it, and maybe we can get to it on the next show. We'll be back on Wednesday talking about all 22 and whatever else happens before then. Or since then. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.